5 Egyptian gods. You were never meant to know. As we all know, Egypt was one of the greatest civilizations to exist back in the day. They constructed huge monuments like the pyramids of Giza and many other smaller ones scattered around the country. But not only were they great builders, they also created an intricate religion filled with gods and goddesses that were believed to control every aspect of human life. Many of these gods are widely known even to this day, such as Anubis, Ra, and Osiris. However, there's plenty of other gods and goddesses who've been lost to time and history, existing only in fragmented pieces of papyrus or barely preserved statues. Some of them were so terrifying that even the Egyptians themselves tried to forget about their existence. Welcome back, everyone. Here today I'll be sharing with you 5 scary Egyptian gods you weren't meant to know. So without further ado, let's get into it. Number 5, Ammit, the devourer of the dead. Ammit is one of the most terrifying gods in all of Egyptian mythology. She has the head of a crocodile, the forebody of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus, 3 of the most dangerous animals in all of Egypt. This is quite fitting as her role was to judge the dead on their way to the afterlife. Every night, the souls of the dead would pass by her, and she would decide whether they were pure enough to go to the field of reeds, or if they were impure and would have to be sent to the underworld instead. If you were judged impure, your soul would then be devoured by Ammit, and you would cease to exist entirely. It's safe to say that you didn't want to meet Ammit on a bad day. Now, the Egyptians believed that you could please Ammit by making offerings to her in the form of food, drink, and flowers. But even so, there's no guarantee that your soul would be spared. In fact, there's a myth where even the sun god Ra himself had to escape from Ammit's jaws after he accidentally insulted her. As you can see, even the gods themselves weren't safe from Ammit's wrath. Clearly, you'd want to stay on Ammit's good side. Otherwise, you might just get eaten. Number 4, Bes, the dwarf god of protection and madness. Bes was a dwarf god whose origins can be traced back to prehistoric Egypt. He was usually depicted as a small man with a big belly and a huge headdress, and his role was to protect houses, families, and sacred places. People would often pray to Bes to help them during childbirth, to protect them from evil spirits, and to make sure that their cows gave birth safely. Now, normally this would make Bes a very benevolent and respected god, right? Well, not exactly. See, Bes was a very volatile god, and he had a tendency to lash out at people without warning. Sometimes he would cause insanity, illness, and death just for fun. And there's even a story where he tricked the sun god Ra into changing his course across the sky, which threw the entire world into darkness. In fact, it was said that Bes was the only god who could enter the underworld and come back alive, likely due to his association with chaos and madness. Needless to say, you wouldn't want to get on Bes's bad side. No. 3. Apep, serpent god of chaos. Apep, also known as Apophis, was the personification of chaos in Egyptian mythology. He was a giant serpent god who lived in the underworld, and his main goal in life was to devour the sun god Ra every single night. Now, don't get me wrong, Ra would always defeat Apep and win in the end, but Apep kept trying over and over again for thousands of years. This was because Apep represented everything that Ra stood against. While Ra brought order, light, and life to the world, Apep represented darkness, chaos, and death. In fact, it was said that Apep was the embodiment of all evil, and that his defeat by Ra was what allowed the sun to rise again every morning and bring light back to the world. Because of this, Apep was considered one of the greatest enemies of the gods, and he was constantly being fought by various divine heroes throughout Egyptian history. In some myths, he was said to be imprisoned in the underworld, while in others, he was said to be banished to the desert where he still lurks to this day. Regardless of how he was defeated, one thing is for sure: Apep was one of the most dangerous and terrifying creatures in all of Egyptian mythology. Number 2. Serket, the scorpion goddess. Now you may be thinking that Serket sounds like a nice and innocent name, but trust me when I tell you that this couldn't be any further from the truth. In fact, Serket was one of the most fearsome goddesses in all of Egyptian mythology. She was usually depicted as a woman with a scorpion on her head, and she was associated with all things poisonous and deadly. People believed that she could cure snake bites and scorpion stings, but she could also inflict them as well. If you angered her, she could turn you into a scorpion and leave you to die a horrible and slow death. Even the slightest of slights would send Serket into a rage. So you had to be extremely careful when dealing with her. Now, despite her evil nature, Serket was sometimes worshipped as a protective deity who could keep evil spirits away from homes and families. However, this was probably just a way for people to try and appease her and keep her from turning them into a scorpion. After all, she was known to be extremely vengeful and unforgiving towards those who disrespected her, so it's best to just stay on her bad side. Number 1. Khonshu, the god of the moon and time. Khonshu is a lesser-known Egyptian god who was usually depicted as a young man wearing a lunar disk on his head. He was the son of the moon god and the stepson of Ra, and he was said to be the ruler of time and the keeper of the hours. Khonshu was associated with the moon cycles, and he was believed to control the tides and the seasons. In addition, he was also seen as a healer and a bringer of light into darkness. Sounds kind of good so far, right? Well, not exactly. See, while Khonshu did have some positive attributes, he was also seen as a very mysterious and even sinister god. In fact, he was often associated with magic and sorcery and was believed to be the source of all evil magic in the world. For example, he was said to be the one who taught the wicked sorcerer Rahotep how to cast spells, and he was also the one who empowered the evil queen Nefertiti to overthrow her husband and take over Egypt. Now, despite his evil deeds, Khonshu was still worshipped by many Egyptians, who saw him as a powerful and enigmatic figure that should not be messed with. His worshippers believed that he could grant them great power and knowledge if they honored him properly, but they also knew that he could bring great destruction and suffering if he wasn't appeased. So, while he wasn't necessarily a villain in the traditional sense, Khonshu was definitely one of the more fearsome and unpredictable gods in the Egyptian pantheon, and it's probably best to just leave him and his magic alone. Thanks so much for watching. Which of these gods scared you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, make sure to subscribe for more content like this. Until next time, stay safe and remember, John shot first.